So this is our workshop 4, and today we are going to do web app hosting and discuss some theories related to advanced cloud concepts. And this is our initial plan. So we will be having a web server in the public subnet and the database in the private subnet. But in the ideal situation, we are going to have an automatic load balancer in the public subnet, and this web server we will have in the private subnet. So database and the web server can communicate inside the private subnet. But since if we use load balancers, we will be moving out of the free tier. I'm not going to use that, but it's not that hard. You can explore when you have time, like how you create a load balancer, and how the load balancer directs traffic to instances. Like there will be an instance group which we call as a target group. Then the load balancer will route traffic to one of the targets in the target group, and you can set up like health checks, like if the targets are responding, like responding with response code 200, that means they are healthy. But if they are responding with like 500 or 400, then there are issues. So likewise, load balancer has the capability to check the health of the targets and direct traffic only to the healthy targets. Whatever unhealthy targets, it will not direct traffic to. So but currently we are not going to do that, just the simple web server and the database. So let me uh, direct let me move to where we stopped last time. I hope you can remember we had an issue SSHing into the bastion. So I was able to diagnose that issue. I had that set up in my custom VPC, but I think I forgot to mention that in the slides. As you know, in regular network, we have what we call routers, and that router will have a routing table to direct traffic. If a particular IP address is looked up, which component should that request be directed to. Likewise, a routing table helps to uh, direct traffic inside a network. So we were missing an entry in the routing table. That is why we could not SSH into the bastion. So let me fix that, and you also can continue with me if you have logged into the AWS console. So let me show how to do that. So I'm in my root account. So this is my IAM account, IAM console. So I go to the instances. No, I have to go to the VPC to modify the routing table. So I select my custom VPC that I created the other day. It is this one. And you can see here main route table. I click on that, and I go to routes. And actually you should have only this entry in your routing table currently. So what I want you to do, I want you to go to edit routes, and I'm going to add this route again. So what we are doing in the routing table is, if there is a request to go to internet, so this is the internet side. Okay, if you have a request to go to the internet, you have to direct that to the internet gateway. So if you just type IGW here, you will get your internet gateway. You might remember that we attach that to this custom VPC, but that itself is not sufficient to direct traffic. We detach it from the default VPC and attach it here, but still you have to have this entry in the routing table so that the traffic could reach this bastion. So if you save these routes, then you should be able to SSH into bastion. So let me show that so I have so I'm going to SSH into this. I could use either the public DNS or the public IP address, but I hope you remember that we added a rule in the security group that this bastion is accessible only via the UI or VPN. So you might need to be connected to that to do this. So I'm going to copy the public IPv4 DNS address and command. And I hope you remember we downloaded the bastion, the key, SSH key, the PEM file. So you need that also. So I'm going to say SSH -i, and now I specify the key that I want to use. Downloads to key pair, and now I say the instance that I want to connect to. This is the use of the instance, Ubuntu at, and this is the DNS address. So let's see. So it will ask you if you want to like confirm the connection. You say yes. Yes. Yeah. So now you are connected. So now if we can get connected to the bastion, then I don't think we should have any issues connecting via the MySQL workbench also. So we could try that also. Let me. So I'm going to my RDS console. This is the one I created the other day. So this was created 22nd, maybe this one. Maybe start time, whatever. So we can connect to either of them. And I also want to tell you something that I told you, like when we could not connect to the database that last day, I asked you to create that database in the public. So I asked you to do this change, if you remember, right? I asked you to make this yes and public access, and like move like the select this yes option, so it will be like publicly accessible, but you don't need to do that. If you have this routing issue fixed, you can still connect to the database outside of the VPC using the bastion. So I just wanted to correct that also. Even though the database is in the private subnet, you can still connect with the bastion. So let me get my database endpoint and try to connect. Okay, I'm going to use this one. Oh, I prefer to use this one, I think. Yeah, we can use either, but if whatever you created that day with your password, you can use that. So I'm going to get this endpoint copied and in my MySQL, so I'm going to get to the home and going to create a new I'm going to remove this one first. So I ask you to use this option. We will say ccwdb, and here SSH host. So the MySQL hostname is that endpoint. Port number is 3306. Password, whatever the password that you entered, password will be asked later. We just give the root username and SSH hostname is the Bastion IP address or the Bastion's DNS name. We can get it from the EC2 console. So this is the one. I'm going to use the IP address. So you can leave port 22 and the username is Ubuntu. Key is that Bastion 2 key. Bastion 2 key, yeah. Okay. And when I click on test connection, it should prompt you the password. So that means it is now connected via the Bastion to the database. If I enter my password correctly, I should get in. Let me know if you have any issues in establishing this connection, right? I get successfully made the MySQL connection. Are you guys following me? If so, you let me know if you have any issues connecting, right? So now I should be able to have that here. So this is my connection. And so I'm going to, I don't know whether I created. So this is the like default. When I was creating the RDS instance, it asked me whether I want to have a default schema created. So I gave the name as DB3. So that is why I have this database. You can have that, or you can create a schema now itself, but I have that. So I want you to create a table here. You go here and say create table, and that should be like, so these are the fields I want. Are you guys able to see the table structure? Its name should be users ID. There are like 4 columns, very simple table. ID, first name, last name, and image. And after you enter all this, you can just click on apply, and it will run the SQL statements to create the table. Okay. It's okay if you guys are just like, if you haven't had a chance to like cope up with what we did last week, if and you are just following me, just observing me, that's fine. Let me know if I could move on, or if you want time to if you want more time to copy this to your database.
Yeah, I think you can move on. At this point, I'm just observing
Okay.
because some of my setup wasn't correct. So,
All right. Okay. Okay, so then okay, so I didn't make any changes, so that's fine. Now I want you to uh, like have a few rows there like this. uh, so it's like just 3 records in this table, uh, and we are going to display this table in our web page that we are going to host next as an EC2 instance. Okay, so if you can have uh, this data in, then we can proceed. So what I am going to do next, I'm going to launch another EC2 instance as my web server. So since we used Ubuntu for the Bastion, I thought of using Linux as our web server. So let me show you how I'm going to do that. If I have anything on the slides. Okay, so these are like steps that we have to follow. It should be in the public subnet. I have a user data script that will install HTTP server, that is the Apache server. And then I need to have 2 security groups for this web server. So I'm going to use the default Bastion pen key, or I could create a new pen key, but that will make things complex. So I'm going to use the same Bastion key to SSH into the web server as well. Yeah, next we are going to SSH into the web server. So let me do these steps here. I'm going to launch an instance. So here you see Linux, Amazon Linux 2 free tier eligible. I'm going to use that. So last time we used the Ubuntu free tier eligible one, this one. But today I'm going to use this one. And so this is the instance type I'm going to use. That is in the free tier still. And so these are the important configurations. I want this to be in my custom VPC, and I want this to be in my public subnet. So I say auto assign public IP. So yes, because this is accessible via internet, so it should have a public IP address. So I say use subnet setting. So I have set public IPv4 addresses enabled for my subnet, public subnet. So then whatever the instances that I put in the subnet will also get public IP address. So you can see here I have now before, in preparation for this workshop, I created several instances. So I have only 5 left. So generally you get 10 public IP addresses that you could use free. So I'm going to use one of them now. And question here. Okay. So the rest is not much important, but what is the next most important thing is this user data box. So user data is like if you want to run something, run a script, run like startup script for your instance. When the instance boots up, this is where you specify that. So what I want is I want to install the Apache server in this instance when it boots up, and I want the Apache server to start. So whenever I use that IP address in a browser, I should see the Apache homepage. Okay, so let me put that script. If you want to use that, I'll paste it in the chat. So let me share that script with you. So this is the script that I want you to paste in this user data thing. So what is actually, it should be like this. Oops, it's too big. It's too big. Okay, so this is like these are like just 4 lines. So yum update means you update all the packages in your Linux, and then you have to install these Linux extras for the PHP to work in this Linux instance along with the Apache server. So there are like few packages that I am installing here: LAMP, MariaDB, PHP. So all these packages need to be installed, and then I'm going to install HTTPD means the Apache server, and MariaDB, that is a MySQL server also. And I say system control enable HTTPD. That means if in case the instance stops or instance shuts down, whenever it boots up again, I need to have this HTTPD server running. That is the idea of this user data script. So I'm going to use that in my user data. And before I do this, I want to check something. If you haven't configured that properly, so I want to go to your public subnet and see if you have done the public IPv thing set up. So I go to VPC service and I see subnets, and this is my public subnet, and I go here and I select modify auto assign IP settings. So here you should have enabled auto assign public IPv for address. Then only this will become a public subnet, and whatever the instances in this subnet are accessible via the internet. Okay, this is an important step. I'm not sure if I did that in the previous uh, lesson, so I just wanted to double check on that. Okay, so then now I'm in the instance launch stage. So I say, yeah, the rest is the same. Next, add storage. I don't want any additional volumes, just the root volume is fine. I don't have any tags, and I'm going to use 2 security groups. I'm going to create a like uh, create a new security group that I want, because I want to allow internet to access this web server via the port 80. So I say, as I would say, HTTP security group. Security group for access. We'll say HTTP access, right? So the rule I want is I want to route HTTP traffic on port 80. Yeah, anyway, so whatever. So this is the IPv4 version of internet side. This is the IPv6 version. So whatever the IP address from the internet, they can reach my server via the port 80. And I say review and launch. Now this is everything is correct. Okay, launch. So I'm going to use this Bastion key pair. So I don't want to create another key pair. Say launch instances. Now let's see. I will copy that instances public IPv4 address or its DNS name and see if it is accessible via the browser. So I'll go to view instances and I believe it is this one. So I'm going to rename it like web server. So it's to initializing. It says instant state is running. So I'll see if I can reach its public IPv4 address on my browser. Still not. Think because it is still initializing. Let's wait for a few more seconds. Miles, are you following the steps?
Yeah, I'm with you right now.
Okay, do you have any? Yeah, if you encounter any issues, please ask me, right? Because only
Okay.
you, yeah, we can have like focus totally on you and troubleshoot any issues you encounter. Are you graduating this semester? No,
Yeah, I'll graduate in a couple weeks actually. Yeah.
I see. So have you found a full-time position somewhere?
Yeah, I'll be going to Google in New York City.
Ah, I see. You are the one who said Google. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so instance seems to be ready. Let's see why I can't connect still. Okay, but okay, maybe something wrong with the Apache server. We will troubleshoot that. So I'm going to SSH into my instance. You see my console, the terminal, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So since this is Linux instance, we have to use the EC2 user as the user and the public IPv4 address, and the key is still the same. So I'm trying to do that. Okay, yeah, as I expected, I'm not allowed. So let's see why I'm not allowed to SSH into my web server. Let's go to the security groups and see. So if you go to security of my web server, I have one security group attached. So what it does is it's allowing port 80, like it's allowing internet to access via port 80, but it never mentions anything about SSHing, right? whether I can SSH into this web server. No, it doesn't share, it doesn't give any permission, or it doesn't allow SSH into this instance. So what I should do, I should attach another security group, something similar to the Bastion, because in the Bastion we could SSH into that. So I'm going to attach another security group to this instance. So then I should be able to SSH into that. So I select the Bastion security group and I say add security group. So now I have two security groups attached to this instance. And I believe now I should be able to SSH into my web server. Let's try again. Okay, so this time we were able to, so I say yes, right. And now let's see what went wrong with our server. So before anything, I prefer to use the super user. I say sudo su. So now I'm no longer the EC2 user, now I'm the root user. So I'm going to see what is happening with our web server. So we can use system control HTTPD. I think status HTTPD. Yes. So it says inactive, right? HTTP service inactive. Let's see if we can start it. Okay, it seems like it started. Let's check the status again. Yeah, now it is active and running. So what I should have added is in that user data script, I should also have added another line here to start, because just installing it doesn't start automatically. You need to like start system control start HTTPD. Okay, that was I was missing that, so I just ran that through the after SSHing into the instance. So now it is running. I should be able to now view my web page here, right? So now we see the Apache homepage. Okay, so that means our web server is running. Now I want to create, this is the Apache's default homepage. I want to create my custom web page, and that will be basically a PHP page, and that will access my database, and it will also try to display some images from a S3 bucket as well. So what I want to do now, I want to access my home directory of the web server. So that is generally in cd, I'm going to cd into var www and html. If I say ls, I don't have anything, not even the index HTML. When I don't have anything, it displays the Apache's default home page. But what I want to do now, I want to create my own home page. So what I'm going to do, since only you are here, I'm going to email you that page that I have. So you can, or rather what we could do, I could teach you some S3 commands also. I will mail you that, and you can upload that to your S3 bucket and download it from there. Okay, let me do that. Let me show you how I'm going to do that. I will first mail that file to you so you can follow with me uploading to the bucket. Um, Send you this file.
So do you know so I have a Windows computer. Do you know if I can SSH the same way that you do into the instance?
Are you having any issues?
I was trying to SSH using this tool called Putty that I've used before on
Yeah,
Windows.
yeah.
And it wasn't working for me. I think it said that I didn't have an authentication method that would work.
So did you specify the PEM key, everything?
Yeah, so I did the host name and the PEM key.
First name and the PEM key. Yeah. Did you specify the user? EC2 user?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, Putty is also very much similar to SSH. I also used this when I was using Windows. I don't know. Let me. So I believe it has to. So you have, are you connected to the VPN? You have a VPN?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. And does it say about like public key? It's a public key or something? Is it complaining about the key being public?
Possibly. Yeah, because when I specify the private key file, I think maybe it wants a .ppk file, and since I have a .pem, maybe that's an issue. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like you can select, like there are multiple ways you can connect, like GPG. There are like different file types, key file types like GPG, that PKK. So if you specify that you want to connect via using a PEM file, I think you should be good. If it is still not resolving, I don't know whether this helps, but you can try like this command. I don't know if it's working. chmod 400, and you specify your PEM file. Like I'm in Bastion. I'm in web server. So this is my local machine. This terminal is in my local machine. So I'm going to run chmod 400. Specify the key file. Sometimes if the permissions are too large, if the file is too open, then SSH doesn't allow you to use such open files like insecure files. So you need to have very restricted access like 400. So I don't know if that would help in resolving.
So I'm looking at a tutorial on AWS's documentation, and I think I need to convert my PEM file into a PuTTY private key file.
That's so.
So yeah, I might just try to follow this. I think it shouldn't take too long, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah. So you're going to follow that tutorial?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Take your time and see if you can SSH into that. Or maybe sometimes you want, maybe we could try this way also. There is a console way, like now you click on this web server, you go to connect here, right? And no, it doesn't let you. No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, just try that tutorial and see if you can get somewhere. I don't know. Is it instance connect? Maybe this one. Yeah, I was able to do that. I don't know if you can try that one, right?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I think I'm almost done with this tutorial.
All
And
right,
then
right. Okay, yeah. If it didn't work, we can try. Yeah, let me send that file over to you. Email.
okay, yeah, I think I'm in now. I was able to SSH.
Are you able to SSH now?
Yes.
Okay, right. So let me share that file with you. This index.php, and I actually want. I'll share all the files that I want to use for this rest of the workshop with you. So I want you to now go to uh, open a new tab in the console. You can go to S3 service, and I want to create a bucket here. Uh, the bucket names, the problem with bucket names is that they have to be unique globally. So you will realize here now in other services, when you go to the service, you get selected to one of the regions in the AWS architecture, but S3 does not require region selection. So this S3 is like a global service, and so the bucket names also have to be unique globally. So but in these other services, you have the option to like have duplicate names in different regions, but in S3 you can't. You have to have a very unique name for your bucket. So I will type like this, and you can sometimes, so you won't be able to use this name, you will have to use another name. uh, Maybe part of your name you can add so it will be unique, but you will realize that very common names like test, dev, all those names you cannot use anymore when you select bucket names. Yeah, I was able to get that ccw hyphen files. So I'm going to go inside and I'm going to upload these files there. I go to add files, and these ones, so whatever I mail you, you can download them and upload them to this bucket.
Okay.
User data I don't need anymore, but I will need this bucket policy. Actually, bucket policy is also not needed for the instance, so only these two will be enough. Okay, now next what I want, okay, I say upload. So now these objects are in my bucket, and I want to now download this index.php file to my web server. So if I click on to that, I get here this S3 URI. Okay, I'm going to copy that, and in my web server terminal, I say I want to copy it to this HTML folder. I say AWS S3.
Sorry, where do you get the URI from?
Yeah, it's if you click on this object, you see its properties and all. So here you can copy it. Just if you click on this icon, it will copy this full name of this object. Okay. Yeah, take your time.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. So now I move to the web server's terminal and I say, I enter this command AWS S3 CP. CP means copy. I want this file to be copied to this location that is given by the dot. symbol. So let's press enter. Unable to locate credentials. Okay. So if so, yeah, he will not use that. So because you will have to set up your okay. Yeah, we can yeah. Do you have your AWS credentials? Uh, like whatever we downloaded on the first day when you created the second day when you created your IAM user.
Yeah, like the secret access key.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I have that.
Okay, if you have that, you can type here like AWS configure, right? And you can specify those here. I will have them. JSON file.
It might be a CSV.
I see. Yeah, I think it's a CSV, correct. So I think I downloaded them some. Yeah. For sharing, I don't want to these to be public. No, I think I don't have that. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to. If you have that, you can set that up, and then this command should work. Okay, you can download it here. If not, we can do something like this. I'm going to create this index.php here, and I can copy it from my local machine to the terminal also. Now I have index.php in this location. I say I'm going to use the nano editor to edit this file. So this is now an empty folder, empty file. I copy the index.php. You can download it from your mail and copy it. I paste it, the entire thing here. Okay, so I get everything here. And there is nothing I want you to change now, but we'll come later and do that change. So I want you to like press Control O to write out. That means you save it. Index.php, yes. And
I'm not able to see what you're doing right now, I don't think.
I see. Yeah, sorry. So I what I did was, let me go back. So what I did was, let me remove the file again and show.
I was able to copy it through S3, so I have it in there now.
Okay. So what I was going to do, I was going to create that index.php file here. And now I have that. So I'm going to edit it, index.php. So it's an empty file. I paste my copied index.php file from local machine from local machine to the web server, and I save it and I exit. Okay, now I have that in my index.php. After I change my index.php, I have to rerun my web server. So I'm going to stop my web server, system control, stop. Okay, now it is stopped. So if you try to browse the website now, you should get an error. Okay, it's not reachable. So I'm going to start it again. So now we should see the new homepage. Okay, so but it's complaining that network address, so all this is still not available. So we are going to do that next. So we didn't specify the database host name, username, password, or anything in the web server. So we are going to do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to specify that in this www folder, I'm going to create a folder here called inc, like whatever that I want to include in my PHP file, I put here mkdir include. So now that folder is created, I cd into that, and I want to create a new file here, dbinfo.inc. Let me check. Yeah, it's dbinfo.inc. And I'm going to edit that also through the nano editor. So it's an empty. So whatever I shared with you as that dbinfo.inc, you can paste it here and change those parameters. So for the DB instance endpoint, I want to specify that RDS endpoint. Copy it from this instance. Okay, and I enter my username here and password. And the database also. Okay, so this is like our database configuration file, and I'm going to save it and exit. So if you see my HTML, so here I'm including that dbinfo.inc file. So now the next time when my web server runs, it knows these host names, usernames, and passwords. So it should not complain about them. Let's try that now. But as earlier, we need to rerun or restart our Apache server. So I'm going to stop it and restart. Stop. Start. Let's see if we get anything now from here. Right. Okay. And you might not get these photos, right? You should say like not available or something, right?
Actually, for me, I'm getting them somehow. I don't know how.
I see. You get the same photos.
Yeah.
I see. I remember. So I made my bucket public because I'll show you how you are getting that. So to get these images come from this line, and I have made my bucket public, So anybody, I have given read access. Anybody, I have given read access to anybody to my bucket. That is why you are able to read my bucket objects. Okay, those three objects. So what I am going to do, so, but if you want to have your own photos, right, what you will need to do, you go to S3 and you create another folder, another bucket here. We will do it that way also, because this is not much useful, you accessing somebody else's bucket. So we will give a bucket name php site2. Right? I don't know if this is also taken already, but we can create bucket. Okay, that's available. So, and I go into this and I remove, like I say it's, I had remove all I let it be public, because when it is a web server, like you don't know from where your people will access your website, but it's an intranet you can control. But when you host your website in the internet, anybody should be able to access, but you should not, you should give only the get object. I will talk to you, you should grant only the read permissions, and you should not let them do any writing or deletion of your objects, right? So I say confirm, so I'm making it public. And I also need to, now you can upload your objects to this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename my files just a bit, so it will not be in the same order. I make this one 3. Oops, sorry. Actually, first this one to be 4. This one 2. It's 3. This one has 1. Okay. So I'm going to upload these same objects to this bucket, and then I will access it from my web server.
Could you email me those images?
Yeah, I could do that. Okay. Okay, yeah. If you want, you can download like different ones, so it's clear. Oh, okay, I can mail you. That's fine. Okay. So so I'm going to upload them to this bucket, and I have made, okay. So I say upload, and one other thing I want to change is the bucket policy, right? So bucket policy is like it determines who can access this bucket, and since I made my bucket public, uh, and I want it to be accessible by the internet, I have to specify like anybody can do the get object operation on my bucket. So let me show how to do that. I go to this bucket and I go to permissions, And here I can edit my bucket policy. So the bucket policy also I mailed you. It's like this. So what it is doing is I have to change the bucket name here, pp php site 2. Okay, change that to fit or suit whatever the bucket name you specified. Then you select this and paste that as your bucket policy. Okay, so I am allowing only the get object. If you allow put object or like delete, yeah, I think it's delete object. uh, Anybody can do anything in your bucket and you will be charged for everything that they dump in your bucket, right? You don't want to do that. Even if they read, you will still be charged for accessing the objects. But since this is just our testing, we will still be in free tier, as we don't have that many requests. So we even now, even still, we give only the get object. But if you want to do all the permissions, you can enter like star, so it gives like full access. So anybody can do anything in your bucket and you will have to pay their total expenses, which you don't want to do, right? So you limit this only to the get object permission and you say save changes, right? So I just want to show one more thing there. So here I specify like principal is star. The principal is the person who is granted this permission. So when I say star, everybody is granted. And effect is like allow. You can have another effect called deny. So if you use deny, that principal will be denied. If you use allow, that principal will be allowed to do get object operation on this bucket. Uh, so if that is set up and you have uploaded items objects to the bucket, I want to do one more change in your code. So instead of this ccw php site, I want you to say that I want to change that to your bucket name. So it should be, in my case, php site 2, right? And so I hope you can understand what I am doing here. I am fetching all the user records from my database table, and these are the values that I fetched. So 0 is the ID, 1 is the first name, 2 is the last name. That will be matched to this table headings, and the fourth one is the image. This $Corey data 3 is the image column. So I'm passing that as the image path here. So I'm saving it and I'm exiting. Now I'm going to restart my oops, let me see what is happening. Yeah, so I didn't have to restart actually, because the it seems like sometimes you don't need to restart. So the bucket, the objects changed uh, immediately, right? So are you able to come to this point?
Yep, it's working for me.
Okay, so I was thinking, actually I was hoping to let me see how many more slides I have. So we did the launching. So uh, so uh, these are just few things I have already discussed, but I just want to go through some of them. Uh, so in AWS, there is this service called IAM that lets you create or grant permissions to users, groups, and policies and roles. So like policies, they are used to control what are the permissions, what are the actions, operations that a particular user or a role can do on other resources like S3 buckets, EC2 instances, RDS instances. So that way you can control access. And there is something called role delegation. So you can allow somebody else to do things on your behalf. You delegate your role to somebody else. For instance, sometimes we don't get we sometimes do certain things in EC2 instance, in RDS instances as users, but sometimes we want EC2 instances do the same on the RDS instances. So you can create a role and you can delegate that to that EC2 instance to do that. And that is the idea of role delegation. And trust relationship means that role is trusting EC2 service to perform that operation. And principle of least privilege is what I explained you by that get object permission. So you don't give more than what is required to do the operations. So if the users want to read the objects, you give only the get object. You don't give put object, that is write permission, or delete object operation to delete or remove objects. So that is the idea of principle of least privilege. So if you give like S3 star, you give all S3 permissions, which is not advisable. And S3 is that service that we just discussed. So it's an object storage. And even though you can have like folder like structure, it's not a hierarchical file structure. You have to have a key. Each object is identified by an individual key in a particular bucket. And what is meant by immutable is you cannot amend objects. You will have to remove the entire object and upload a new object. That is the idea of immutable. But in a regular file structure, you can modify files. You don't need to create a new upload, or you don't need to upload a fresh file. You can just upload an existing file, but that is not allowed in S3. It's object storage. So that means you cannot edit your objects. And some advanced cloud concepts that I wanted to discuss with you. Load balancing. So there are like 3 types of load balancers in AWS, like application load balancer, ALB, classic load balancer, and network load balancer. But all these are expensive, so I'm not going to try them in my workshops, but you can experiment them when you are comfortable with the AWS console. And there is a service called Route 53 that helps you route traffic. For instance, if you have instances in different regions of the world, if a user in Asia Pacific wants to access your website, you can direct traffic to the instance in the Asia Pacific region. If you have a user in US East, you can access their traffic to the instances in the US East. So likewise, that geo-based routing helps you reduce network latency and fully utilize your network bandwidth. And scalability and fault tolerance is another component in the EC2 that you will learn under auto scaling groups. You can try how to set up auto scaling groups in EC2. So it's like based on your CPU usage of instances, you can have multiple instances. If your current CPU usage is above 80%, you want to have another website, another web server running up. So your request will not be dropped. I can show you how you can, I'll show you how you do the monitoring of your EC2 instances. And another important concept is Docker, like containerizing. That's a very trending thing if you can learn. Like you run your programs, and what we did was we didn't develop any container applications. We just developed a simple monolithic application. But if you could build a containerized application in one EC2 instance, you can run multiple web servers like its own container. So in that way, You can traffic route to whatever those individual containers and do your actions there. And another important concept, advanced concept, is infrastructure as code tool. So like what we did so far was we were doing everything in the console manually, but it is not how it is done in the actual environment. You write code to create your VPCs, subnets, EC2 instances, databases. All this is done via code. You don't just go and click in your console to do changes. So that is another concept. So you use languages like Terraform, or AWS itself has a service called CloudFormation to create those resources. And the next thing is the serverless computing, another trending area. So one disadvantage of using EC2 is that they are machines, and anybody, if somebody gets the PEM keys, they can SSH and do harm to your systems. But in serverless systems, you cannot SSH and you cannot do any harm. You can only run, because the underlying infrastructure is not exposed to us. It's kept to the AWS developers, and we just can run our applications there, and we can't SSH, but we can see the logs and everything on a separate service called CloudWatch. So uh, that is another trending area, because it eases a lot of burden from the developers for things like patching or security, so resolving security vulnerabilities with EC2 instances. Lambda is another serverless tool. Like if you want to run batch processing, like you want to run something every few hours to search a particular bucket. If there is anything added to that bucket, you want to do some processing and pass that to another bucket. That kind of things you can easily do with Lambda, where you don't need to run an instance. So here's an example of a cloud formation template. So you can have like resources like VPC. So here you specify certain things, names, and you remember we were setting up this enable DNS support, DNS host names, and you can have internet gateway, you can have public subnets. So all those resources you can create programmatically. And the next is another service that we couldn't touch, unfortunately. It's a DynamoDB. So you remember when I was creating the database configuration, I hard coded my database endpoint, username and password into a file in my web server, which is very risky. If somebody access my database, they know what my username and passwords are. But in the actual situation, what you are doing is you are using this service called DynamoDB. It's like a two-column table. You have key and value. So you can specify database endpoint as the key and the actual endpoint value as the value. And you can specify username as the key and the database username as the value. And you can specify password value. But also you can encrypt. So the passwords can be encrypted. So not everybody can read your passwords or anything when it is encrypted. So that facility is another important thing. You can explore these things. And CloudWatch, this is like kind of logging or logging service, where you can see the logs of your systems. And generally you don't allow web developers to SSH into web servers. You can specify uh, uh, something called a CloudWatch log group, and whatever the logs from your Apache server will be forwarded to that log group. So you grant access to the CloudWatch log groups to the developers, so they can troubleshoot applications there without SSHing into the web servers. And there are other third-party tools like New Relic, Splunk, that also supports these logging. And I'm going to show you some system monitoring here. If you go to your EC2 console, you can go to the monitoring and see how your CPU and memory are used in your EC2 instance. So if there are like peaks over 80%, 90%, then definitely that means you need to increase your instance size, so that you don't drop any requests or your instance doesn't shut down uh, unexpectedly. So I think that is all I have to cover, and I will send you guys a survey form just to get to know how our workshop went. So I think this is going to be our last workshop in the series, and I hope you took something out of this, and you will use that in your whatever the job that you do, and to improve your knowledge and how you think about cloud computing. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can wrap up the series, and I'll send you guys a link, a survey link. Just give some feedback so I can use that to improve on the future workshops.
Great. Well, thanks so much for doing this. It's actually really helpful.
Yeah, it's nice like to hear that, because we didn't get that much participation, and I hope that whatever the that feedback will get us more crowd, so the more people will benefit out of this. Yeah, thank you very much, and feel free to fill my survey that I will be sending you, Miles. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, if you don't have any questions, we can wrap up.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank
Okay.
you again.
Yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you for
Thanks, you
coming.
too.
Bye.
Bye.